Hi, this is John Barber from IDW Publishing. You are listening to The Pull Bag.
Hi, this is Dan Gilbazan, and you're listening to the GeekCast Radio Network.
Hello and welcome to The Pull Bag. I am one of your hosts, TFG1Mike. Joining me this time around is PecanCtMichael. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going. Last week everyone heard Michael's Comic Origins episode, and this week we have a very special interview. I think this would make it the 4th or 5th interview on The Pull Bag. I don't know, I'd have to go back and look at those numbers. Today we have the pleasure of welcoming and saluting Captain Continuity, Mr. John Barber from IDW Publishing. Hello, John. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Very well.
I'm doing good.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Good, Terry. Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I'm just kidding.
Funny.
That's a callback to something we were talking about off.
Funny. Funny. All right. So, first of all, I think I had to start with this. Who gave you the name Captain Continuity?
I assumed it was you. I don't know who said that.
No, I've heard of other people call you that.
Okay.
All right then. Before we get started, can you...
You have penned him a name. That's nice.
Shut up.
His new nom de plume.
Yes.
I assumed it was because like of a story editor type thing. Cause...
Yeah, because he's always fixing the goof-ups from the old Transformers stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, where I think it really got going is when I first started on Transformers, I was doing the movie comics.
Mm-hmm.
And like I kind of went in, you know, especially at that, like an archaeologist or something. And I went through and I watched the movies and wrote everything, you know, that happened down. And I went through the comics and I was kind of treating it like, okay, if all this were real, like how did these things happen? Because like, you know, the movies, you know, there's not an entirely smooth continuity between any one given film, let alone all three of them at that point. You know, so like I was kind of like, oh, here's some things. And also, you know, the comics would come out and then they'd be kind of overwritten by stuff that happened in the movie that, you know, we didn't know was going to happen or whatever. So I just as kind of, you know, fun or sort of Easter eggs, I would add sort of asides that would, you know, nod towards some of that, I guess. And then when I was all done writing one of the movie comics, my editor at the time, Andy Schmidt, asked if there was anything like extra I could add to the comic book. There's like a weird thing where I think the paperback came out first as a movie adaptation, and then the comics were coming out. So they're looking for something they could add into the comics to make it like, if you bought the comics, you didn't just waste your money. So I wrote these like prose stories, and they were all kind of, at least the first three at least were kind of, okay, here's the story. And the fourth one is just, oh, here's me just you know, here's a bunch of other continuity things I noticed. So I'm just going to have a loosely formed story. It was kind of funny, like Michael Kelly that I work with now all the time at Hasbro, he's a really good friend. He saw that, like that was the one he had a note on. He was like, this doesn't seem like a story. And I was like, okay, yeah, you're kind of right. So I think we kind of reworked it a little bit to make it a little more of a story. But I think that's where it got, I don't know, where it got started. I don't know. But it's not like I hear that, get called that too much in person.
The only reason why I ever heard it, and it's all her fault, and she can take full blame for this, Lady Rec over at the Underbase podcast. That's where I first heard that from. So it's all Amy's fault. We'll blame Amy, and she'll just sit back and take it. We've already gotten started, but can you give us the scoop on what's going on in the world of John Barber? Any upcoming Transformers or Gem events that you can reveal that haven't really been revealed yet?
Transformers or Gem? Let's see. No.
I can tell you, but I'd have to kill you first, and then.
Let me see. The Gem right now. The Gem annual is at the press. The first one of those, and it's great. Like it really turned out well. I don't think we've shown any pages of it yet. I think we should be getting some of those out really soon. Because it's really amazing. Yeah, Sophie Campbell didn't draw it, but we have 5 guest artists because it's 5 short stories, and they're all amazing. It's, Ariel Jovenelis, whose name I just mispronounced. I'm sorry. Jen Bartel, Agnes Garbowska, Amy Meverson.
So wait, Amy's on interior art?
Yeah, she's doing a framing sequence on that. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. I loved her covers for issue 1, the classic.
Yeah, that was really the genesis of it was we like that some other that was part of the genesis. It's part of the story, and that it's going to be what do you call it? We're going to have gem babies in this comic. There's going to be a gem babies story. Rebecca Isaacs, I think I left her off. I think that's 5, right? That's all 5 artists.
I think so, yeah.
Anyway, I think that's going to be fantastic. Going on in Transformers, new story called Conquerors is starting with issue 46, which is the issue after the next one. And that's going to be Andrew Griffiths is off for a couple issues, and the art on that one is speaking of me mispronouncing names, Sarah Patry Drocher, who drew the Combiner Hunters one shot. She's doing the story art, or she's doing most of the arc. Andrew's doing 1 issue of it because this 1 issue is something that Andrew and I have been talking about for a couple of years. So we want to make sure that we'd be able to do that one together. But Sarah's amazing on this. That's going to be really good. But there will be some big announcements coming up soon. There will be some cool announcements coming up. We're running up to issue 50 on each of the books, so there's going to be at least one really big announcement about that.
Very awesome.
You don't want to stomp all over the NDA.
Yeah. Well, I would think since he's the boss, he can NDA whatever he wants. All right, so do you guys have any upcoming? Is IDW going to any more conventions this year?
Yeah. Well, I know we're going to do New York Con. I think I might be there. I'm not 100% sure yet. What else do we have going on? I'm not sure. I know there's some Baltimore that's coming up, isn't it? Baltimore. Unless the Baltimore Con has already happened, we will be there.
I just went to the Chicago Comic-Con yesterday, and yeah, I didn't see much in the way of an IDW presence there.
No, I don't think we did. We didn't really do much at Chicago. I don't think we're at Chicago.
I want to say C2E2 there was. But that was like back in March.
Yeah. Okay. I think my daughter's probably about to run up here and say hi. So we'll see her in a second.
All right. So where did you grow up, and had you always wanted to get into writing and or editing comics?
Let's see. So I mostly, when I was a little kid, I was in a suburb of Chicago called Elmhurst. It was about 8. My parents moved to Anaheim, California. Oh yeah? Where are you at?
I'm in Chicago.
No, you're not.
Well, you know what?
Northern Indiana.
To most people, I say I'm in Chicago, but the fact is, I'm like 20 minutes outside of Chicago, just over the border in Indiana. I know Elmhurst. It's a suburb.
Okay. Yeah.
Northwest Indiana is a suburb of Chicago, so that counts.
Yeah, Chicago's pretty far away from a lot of Illinois. I don't know if people that aren't from there realize that. Like it's kind of like it's more.
Yeah, it's
more
nestled
like
up in the
Michigan
corner
than it is.
Yeah, they have their own. They kind of have their own culture outside of the rest of Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about the rest of Illinois because I was 8 when I moved out of there. When I was 8, my parents moved to Anaheim, California, where Disneyland is. And I found them, even though they moved. I tracked them down. I mostly grew up there. I went to right now I live in San Diego. I went to college in San Diego. I was in New York for about 10 years, 8 to 10 years, somewhere like that. Because I can't do math very well. I kind of always wanted to get into comics. I mean, when I was a little kid, I wanted to do all the little kid stuff. I wanted to be like an astronaut, and I kind of found out that was really hard. And then I wanted to be a writer for a while, and then I got really into comic art, and I wanted to write and draw comics. That was kind of my focus through like high school, college, even after college. And then I sort of lucked into. I applied for a job at Marvel, and one thing led to another, and I got a job assistant editing at Marvel, and then I was there for about 6 years. Kind of rose up from assistant editor to editor. And I left to go freelance to get back into writing, and I started doing the Transformers stuff, and then I just got what's now the Transformers ongoing. It was then the Robots in the Sky is ongoing. James and I just got hired to do the books when our editor Andy Schmidt left to go to Hasbro, and I was kind of nervous because here I was, I just got this ongoing gig. I was doing like mostly freelance graphic design stuff, and he was like, "Oh, I could throw your name in the ring, to take over my position." And I was like, "Well, yeah, but I don't want to give up writing. Like I really like that part of it." And he was like, "Oh, at IDW, like you wouldn't necessarily have to give it up." So that happened. All that happened. I got the job.
Cool.
And then we moved back out to San Diego. Hi. Hi. That's my daughter.
Everybody says hi.
She's dressed like Ariel. Everybody says hi. Yeah.
That's adorable.
Awesome.
That is an awesome costume, Ava.
And a little bit strike on the mouth and a habit on
That's a starfish headband, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
That's the best kindest.
Okay, I'll be out in a little while. All right, sorry about that. She has an Ariel costume now.
How old is she?
4 years old.
Oh boy, that's a fun age. Their personalities are just emerging. Yeah. Mine are are 7 and 9 now. So yeah, they are fresh. Cool. Yeah, fresh from their Comic-Con visits. I take them every year.
Yeah, like Ava went to. I took her to Comic-Con, not this past one, the previous one. She was okay whenever she saw a Disney princess or Spider-Man, and she was happy when she was playing with the Legos. But like you can do that at any mall or at home with Legos. Yeah. And she was kind of overwhelmed by the whole thing. And then like the next day, she looked at me and she said, "Daddy, I don't want to go to Comic-Con." I said, "Okay, don't worry."
Oh, okay, all right.
But she didn't go this year, but I think she kind of regretted not going this year, so probably she'll be back next year. I think by the time she's
my kids love it.
5, almost 5. Yeah. I think by the time they're maybe almost 5, they'll like it. I
started mine off at 5. I think 4 might have been a little young, but yeah, at that point it's like you're not gonna do the panels. You're not gonna sit in line for 4 hours to be Bruce Campbell. You're basically there for your kids to see Spider-Man.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm sorry to digress. So when you were telling us the story, I actually thought you were going to say, and then I applied at Marvel and got rejected, and then I applied at Marvel and got rejected, and then I applied at Marvel and they took pity on me. Did you just get right in, just slide right into the door?
Well, okay. What happened was we moved to New York, and my wife was going to grad school, and I was working a temp job. It was actually a great job. I was bug checking this website for this nonprofit company. So it was like they literally nobody there ever saw my timesheet. Like I just filled it out after it had gotten signed. So it was really the greatest job in the world, and I probably should have stayed there forever. So I was applying to like any job that sounded at all interesting or that I thought I was at all qualified for. And I applied for this job at Marvel, and I forgot about it. Like I literally forgot that I applied for a job. And then one day Bill Jemis called me on my cell phone, and I thought it was my friends just messing with me. I really didn't think it was real. I actually had to go on my computer and find the cover letter that I had saved somewhere. And I was like, oh, I did apply for a job at Marvel. So I went in for an interview, and it was for I'd applied for some sort of a manufacturing job or something. I mean, something I knew nothing about, but I just saw there was Marvel, and I thought, I'll roll the dice. And then by the time Jemis had got Bill Jemis, I don't know if he was the president of Marvel in the early 2000s. And he was a very colorful figure, very controversial. So I came in for an interview, and at this point it was like for some sort of I don't know if you follow Marvel stuff at all, but it was maybe sort of like a talent relation job before they had that in position. Okay. So that was sort of what I was interviewing for. And Jemis and I hit it off really well. I've never worked with a gentleman, and that might be a key in our relationship. Like, we get along really well, but we've never actually worked together. And then the interview went really well, and then the job literally didn't materialize. Like that job didn't come into being. I think it was probably 5 years later before that job actually existed at Marvel, and I wouldn't have got it anyway. But Bill liked me, so I guess he was telling people at Marvel, to take a look at me, and I don't know. It was about 4 months of interviewing. I went in for maybe 2 more interviews, and then after the last one, I was walking home, and I got a call that day, and I was like, oh, you're hired. When can you start? I'm like, oh, I'm working this temp job, so technically I can leave whenever, but it'd be nice to give them 2 weeks, so they could find somebody else to do this job. And then later that day, I was like, okay, can you start tomorrow? I'm like, oh, well, yeah, okay, we'll work that out. Maybe the day after. So it was kind of funny. And then by that point, Bill, Jemis was leaving Marvel, and he was so he wasn't really involved in editorial. He was just kind of helping the new people kind of come in. It was mostly Dan Buckley who was who eventually took over as publisher. There's a guy in between, but Dan took over basically that position. And Dan Buckley's a great guy, and I was lucky to get to work with him.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, let's
you were very fortunate. I've never heard a more fortunate story.
Yeah.
Just
kind of fell up.
It's like Michael said earlier. It's like, sorry, no. It's like, hey, maybe I should apply at DC and get even more rejection. So when you were working at Marvel, compare that process to what you guys do at IDW. How much of because we all know Marvel had their quote-unquote method. What's the difference between the two companies as far as the editing side of it goes?
It can depend. I mean, a lot of the stuff that IDW does is either we do some create our own stuff, but a lot of it is licensed. We don't do a ton of stuff that's sort of company owned. Mm-hmm. So the logistics of that are different, and it really depends on the license. Some comics very closely follow the model of what they're licensed from, the Skylanders comic, for instance. That's something that I think really, it looks like the Skylanders art. It follows those designs exactly. The stories, very carefully fit in with what goes on in Skylanders. The mechanics of sort of editing that are different than, let's say the G.I. Joe or Transformers comics or Gem or something, where I think it's like those are effectively the same as working at Marvel. There really isn't there really isn't any material difference in them, other than like Hasbro sort of has the role of like when I was there, like a Joe Quesada or like an Axel Alonso now, where you'll talk to them about sort of storytelling and broad strokes, and every once in a while there might be something that they come in and either like as a story thing, like, hey, it would work better if you did this, or every once in a while something like, I don't know if we should do this this thing, so let's talk about this. But I mean, Hasbro's really really great to work with on these things, and I got the comics that IDW do on all of those are kind of off on their own. Like they're not
right.
They're not aligning. Like we do a comic based on the Robots in Disguise TV show, and that's a little different because then you're trying to follow the models a little bit closer. You have to make sure you're not doing a story that steps on anything the studio's doing or that interferes with their stories, and it all it's all additive and builds up the world instead of getting in each other's way.
You're not going to get nearly as much leeway with that property than you would with, like The Lost Light.
Right. It isn't even just leeway. It's just like it's just a different sport that you're going in and playing. You
can't kill Strong Arm.
Right. Exactly.
Don't even.
I like Strong Arm. I'm just saying.
No. What I'm saying is don't bring up the point of character deaths, because if you bring it up enough times, we've already seen Margaret kill Scrounge or whoever that guy was. Says, are you going to kill him? 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 And she killed him.
Scrounge with his one special arm, or is that a different Scrounge?
I don't think Georgia Ball is as dark and sickening as Margaret can be in the writing, though. Luckily, the TF Rid animated series is a lot more lighthearted than what Margaret usually writes.
They introduced a lot of new Decepticons that could probably die in grisly ways and nobody would bat an eye. Just throwing that out there.
Well, we'll think about it.
Oh boy,
that's
now
right.
You're giving them ideas. Great. We're sorry, folks. Michael Wilson broke IDW on the Transformers animated Rid cartoon comic, and it now is canceled after issue 5.
I'm sure Hasbro would have something to say if Grimlock accidentally bit somebody in half. I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, it was an accident.
Yeah, exactly. Hasbro would say, wait a minute, you can't have Grimlock biting a Decepticon in half. You can't. This is a kid's show. So, after seeing some of the stuff that happened in More Than Meets the Eye, I mean, someone getting bit in half is kind of trivial.
More Than Meets the Eye is such a complete different monster than what the Rid animated comic is. And
as to my original point, yes.
And it's one of those things where between, technically, the book you write, John, the main book that you write is technically a spawn of Prince, because it is now known as the book formerly known as Robots in Disguise. With those two books, what I would assume is that it's, I'm assuming, and you can tell us here in a moment, I'm assuming you guys pitched several ideas to Hasbro, and they say, okay, that works, and then they just give you guys creative freedom to write whatever story you're going to write. I wouldn't think at this point in the game of both the ongoings that they would have too many story notes on it, would they?
I mean, yeah, no. I mean, we like it isn't like they're like, there isn't a thing where they come in and they're like, this is what you have to do, or no, don't do that. Like, there really hasn't like ever been that sort of thing. Like I talk with the Transformers brand team a lot, so we both sort of know what we're doing. Like a lot of the toys can kind of change at the last well, not the last minute, but they can change, as things are going on. But I sort of know what toys they're looking to do, and what ones are going to come out. And I kind of, enjoy putting some of that stuff in there. It isn't a situation where, I think if you go to the end of the Bob Budiansky run on the original Transformers, and it's just what thing is he going to get stuck with, now? How's he going to have to try to make this fit in the story that's going on? But there are definitely some points where we've, they've known that we were doing, combiner stuff, and we had, going back into the early days of RID, they knew that we were doing the whole thing with Prowl was going to be Devastator, part of Devastator, and then Megatron was going to be part of that, or almost part of that. So you're going to have this sort of modular combiner sort of thing. And I think, and that was the sort of thing that eventually, the combination of that and, whatever other forces of, it would be cool to get combiners back into the Generations toy line, leads to Combiner Wars happening someday, where that was a dovetailing of a story that we'd, set out to tell and, or launched in Robots in Disguise, and then became a toy thing. But we put out a lot of Transformers comics, and comics are really difficult for licensors because there's so many pieces to it. Like a prose book, you have a manuscript and a cover. That's it. The comic book, you have the script, then you have 20 whatever pages of art. They come in as pencils and inks and colors, and the lettering, and we'll have 3 covers on every issue, maybe 4 sometimes. There's just a lot of pieces to it, so it's it's a lot of work to even get through all that stuff. But yeah, no, I can't think of a time where James or I have come up with something and wanted to go somewhere where they weren't really supportive of it. I didn't even see this. What's that?
No, I just saw James at TFCon, and this was how long ago was this? No, this was longer ago than I thought. This was October, but he was talking about he was talking about no, this was the brain eating scene in More Than Meets the Eye.
Oh,
where Hasbro saw that and said, how about not?
Oh, that's actually not true.
Oh, it's not true? Okay.
Yeah.
What happened? Because he was showing us the original art, and this is what it looked like before, and this is what it looked like after.
The original art was kind of a sketch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was
more than a sketch.
Me.
I mean, it looked very similar to what was on the page. It was just one of the panels was switched, so that what happened originally in the story wasn't actually what happened.
Yeah, that was it's funny, James was. Well, I don't know. No, that was the thing that James and I had talked about. That I think through other. There were some connotations to what was portrayed initially that were not intended, and he and I talked about that, and we talked about the artist's agent, because the artist happens to not speak English, or at least went through an agent. Maybe he speaks English. Actually, I know. You know what? That's not true. He does speak English. I'm sorry, but he does go through an agent.
Okay.
I don't know how comfortable he is speaking English. But yeah, no, that wasn't a Hasbro thing. That wasn't a Hasbro thing.
Oh, okay, so that was internal.
I saw the first version of that. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe I misrepresented that. That was actually recently. I want to say that was at BotCon. They showed that during one of the panels, and yeah, I was surprised at the original imagery. Let's say. It's like, wow,
it was a little,
that's okay.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, it wasn't just that it was gruesome. It was, like I said, evocative of things that I don't think were intended by James's script.
Right. I'll buy that.
And
I got the impression that it was nixed by Hasbro, not by management.
No, I mean, it was. I was under the impression it was a mutual discussion between James and I, but I think that's where we.
You were there, so I'll take your word for it.
So Michael is a huge toy collector. He has an entire office back wall of cabinets filled with Transformers in them. It's good that we've got you on here now that I can finally figure out what is going on with this, because so I can inform some of my other friends that don't know about this. When you guys do the pack-in comics for the toys, is that a specific comic written and drawn for that toy packaging, or is that like a mini comic preview of like a More Than Meets the Eye or Robots in Disguise issue, or how do the comic toy pack-ins work?
Well, the very first set we did, because it's something like IDW had kind of wanted that for a while. Because like from our point of view, it gets a comic into the hands of somebody who maybe would never know there were Transformers comics or would never see one. And I think a lot of us, reading comics now kind of started at least partially because we'd get these, like the Masters of the Universe comics or the, I think Mask had comics back in some of the toys. So we kind of wanted something like that, for a while. The very first set, they had 6 characters that they wanted to do. So we set out and we did 6 one-shots, which were the spotlights that we did several years ago. So those were really clearly set out to tie in with those toys. But then also James and I and Nick, because Nick Roach did the Megatron one. Some of it was just sort of set up, like they were all set in different eras in the continuity, and they kind of helped reinforce some points that maybe we were going to try to make in the main comics. Like there were a few things that got set up that kind of pay off later. I think probably most directly with the More Than Meets the Eye stuff, because both of those are set like right between 2 specific issues. Like the ones that I did were kind of set in different eras. And Nick did the one, and then James did the Orion Pax one. It was set in the past, but it's definitely got some stuff that we brought up later. Anyway, those we all did like really specifically for those toys, and that worked out pretty well. But it wasn't really something that was like sustainable. And what kind of happened is like Hasbro liked it too. Like they I think we both enjoyed what we got out of it. Like they get extra content in the toys, which is great because it's like an added value for the toys. We get the comics in the hands of somebody that maybe wouldn't know or wouldn't care that there were Transformers comics, but maybe will become a fan of the stuff once they see it. And eventually, like we started to do, it was going to be like 12 a year and then 16 a year, and it didn't make sense to do that many one shots, like at all. Like it would just be really the one shots probably wouldn't stay very good. And the sales on the one shots are funny because like Transformers fans I think really want the characters that don't get play in the books. Comics retailers really want Optimus Prime and Megatron. So like the Spotlight Megatron sold really well. Spotlight Hoist didn't sell that well, which is crazy because if it had been an issue of More Than Meets the Eye, it would have sold great. Like you could have told that exact story in More Than Meets the Eye. So that was sort of our thought. Oh well, maybe we can tell these stories within the comics. But I think the next thing we did was Dark Cybertron. And when we set out to do Dark Cybertron, like that was something we all, that was actually weird, or not weird, but it was a unique one that I think Hasbro flew James out. I flew out, and then Phil Jimenez took the train from New York, all over to Rhode Island, and we all got in a room with everybody at Hasbro and sort of started working on what we could do for this big crossover story. And we had a list of what characters were going to be, like what the toys were going to be, but like by the end of that they didn't line up anymore. Like the plans had changed on some of the toys. Maybe plans had changed in the comics as things went on too. So kind of at that point we started to maybe see it wasn't going to work out too well if we got too specific on what characters we were going to tie them in with. So where we are now is kind of we've been doing the Combiner Wars stuff. So like IDW did 6 issues that we labeled Combiner Wars with the impacts. Like it's those 6 plus it's like the 4 issues of RID that kind of lead up or was it RID then? 4 issues of the book I write.
Yeah.
To kind of lead into it. And then we pulled some of the old issues of RID that sort of set up some of the combiner stuff, like the Dinobot Hunt issues with the stuff in the wilderness, and then the whole end of the Icon, the whole end of the Bumblebee, Metalhawk, Starscream story. It's like the last, whatever it is, 6 issues of that, I think.
So those are so those comic pack-ins for Dark Cybertron and Combiner Wars are basically mashed up stories from the ongoings?
Oh no, like each one's exactly an issue.
Okay.
Yeah, so like if you have all the issues of Dark Cybertron and all the issues of the Combiner War stuff, like you have all of the impacts. The other minor changes were like because the toys are aimed at like maybe whatever 5 or 6 year olds or 8-year-olds. You will maybe cut out some of the harsher words, like that sort of thing. But that's really the only change.
Differences. Do you
and
pull,
no
yeah,
cutting
we just,
and no cutting people lengthways.
Yeah, that would maybe be pushing it, but we have, I actually don't think we changed any art in any of the comics.
Okay.
I definitely thought there was one where we were going to, but they were okay with it.
Wow.
So yeah, like it's not like we were, like we were writing issues as just regular issues, and a lot of them. I mean, some of them were, we decided a year down the road this would be an impact, so it definitely hadn't entered our mind. But yeah. So it's So like if you actually tore one of those open, I mean, it's a full comic book. It's got a little recap. It's got all the pages of the comic. It's full size. There's a little ad in there for how to get IDW comics. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got just on my desk right now. I've got Chromia, Windblade, Tankor, and Rat Trap. And we were just having this conversation the other day. And if I open it, not only am I devaluing the toy, I'm devaluing the comic. And now I can't possibly open any of these now.
Come on, open it up. You want to.
Well, it depends. It's like I'm pretty sure they're not going to make a specific Chromia comic book. They probably just have, one of the episodes that have been rebranded for this purpose.
Well, John's here. John, what is the Chromia pack-in? Do you remember?
Yeah, no.
It's probably an episode of one of the Windblades with Chromia in it.
No, I don't think it is. Oh man, is it labeled Dark Cybertron or is it?
No, it's just labeled Chromia. It's like the Chromia. Okay. It's just labeled Chromia.
Oh no, I've got it. I just can't.
Michael, open the toy package.
Open that toy, damn you! No,
it's not like Chromia is going to go for $1 million on eBay tomorrow, Michael.
That's true. But like Windblade. Windblade has one of the series. They're not going to make another comic just for this box.
John, what were you going to say?
Chromia was one of the funny ones. Chromia was really funny because we were going to enter like Windblade won the fan built bot contest, right? Like or whatever you want to call it. Like so Windblade is going to get introduced into Dark Cybertron. So I can't remember if James and I were figuring out when we did that. She should probably have some friends with her. We'll bring in Chromia, and then I think James wanted to do like a new character, so he did Nautica. So we introduced them into it, and then after that, like Hasbro was like, we're going to do like one of the last waves of the Dark Cybertron toys is actually going to be Chromia. So like, that's really cool. We actually, great coincidence because we actually have the character in Dark Cybertron. That's perfect. Couldn't be better. So we'll do, there'll be an issue of Dark Cybertron that's got Chromia in it. And I think the toy got pushed back, for whatever logistical reason or, whatever perfectly reasonable reason the toy got pushed back for. But then, so all of a sudden, it wasn't going to be one of the Dark Cybertron issues that had her in it. So I don't know. I thought that was a funny one. That she popped in and then popped back out of Dark Cybertron as being a toy. And also, I might be misremembering that. I'm pretty sure I'm right, but I might be wrong. There's a lot of these. Guys.
if Michael would grow a pair of Devastator balls and just open the toy,
hey,
it's right there on your desk.
There are a lot of other toys on my desk that are in the queue to be opened before these, so this might not be open for a while.
Okay. You mentioned Dark Cybertron earlier. How did the behind the scenes on that, with you and James collaborating to bring the two ongoings together, how did that really work? What was the genesis of that? Because as anyone that's read Dark Cybertron knows, that's basically the conclusion to Shockwave's story, since he hasn't been back in the comics since.
Yeah. So like I've been setting up in the Transformers in Robots in Disguise that Shockwave is going to be, like the next villain or the next piece of the story. And gosh, how did it all? Hasbro had the idea of doing this like 12-part event, and like it's funny now because we're almost at issue 50, but like at that time we were probably at issue like 10 of those of the books, and that felt really long. Like it felt like we'd been at it for a while, because like you go into this not knowing how the book's going to do, and not knowing if the comics are going to get canceled or if they're going to keep going. And everything was going great around issue 10. So we felt pretty confident that we had more issues in us, and everything. But there was still that sort of, I don't know, like you like now I feel like I could be, confident that, okay, if we're going to be at issue 50, I'm pretty sure we'll be at issue 60, as long as the story goes that long. But like at that time, like going to issue 10 and then, looking to issue 20 was like looking forever into the future. It's like when you're 3 years old and you're talking about when you're 6 years old, as opposed to when you're, 35 and looking when you're 38. Like those, the distance is so much further. So like at the time we were like, hey, okay, we'll have been apart for like, 18 issues by this point. We should do something that brings the two stories together. So I don't know. Maybe I talked James into it. I don't really remember. He might distance himself. I don't know. But so we wanted to do something that would bring the cast back together. And be, really big. And, I think we kind of wanted to go over the top big, and do the big, do the big crossover story. We all went out there. We all went out to, James and I and Phil Jimenez, and Phil's like an amazing artist and writer who's worked on big, like he worked on Infinite Crisis. He drew that. He's written and drawn Wonder Woman and Donna Troy. He's been on big X-Men, the Grant Morrison X-Men, the Warren Ellis X-Men. Wow. Drew part of Invisibles. He's an amazing artist and writer. And he's also a huge Transformers fan. So he was kind of out there with like sort of this fresh set of eyes that, he's a huge Transformers fan, but he wasn't as down in the trenches in the comics as James and I were. And we really, there were all kinds of people from Hasbro that were kind of throwing out ideas. Michael Kelly, is always somebody that's really big there. Andy Schmidt was still there at that point. Mark Webber has been like a great friend of the comics. He works on the G.I. Joe brand team now. He was a big supporter. I think he was maybe the one who threw out some of the crazier ideas as things went on. And we sort of kind of came up with like bits and pieces. Some stuff would float out in the room and it would just be too crazy. At one point, like every Transformers multiverse was going to come crashing down together. But that didn't feel right. And once we started doing it, just wound up introducing all the stuff into the story that it had never been a part of the story that we'd been telling. So like as big a scope as that comic has, like for a few minutes it got a little bigger, but not
a little
not in a good way.
confusing, maybe.
Yes.
Confusing is the term I would use. I liked it, and again, Mike and I have had this conversation before plenty of times, but I liked the different uses of art style to kind of split the story up.
Yeah,
and that made it a little more coherent. I think if it was just one solid art style, it would have been really confusing.
You mean Dark Cybertron?
Dark Cybertron, yeah.
The only artist, no offense to any of the other artists, but the only artist that I could read Dark Cybertron all the way through if it was just one artist, Livio Remondelli. I love his art on the Transformers books. Livio is so awesome. I love that. He's got that kind of, I don't want to, it
kind of painted.
It's kind of like a sheen. It's like the difference between a matte and a glossy photo, and his are more kind of glossy a little bit, and oh man, I love Livio's art.
Yeah. Well, the stuff's still so weathered, like it looks like those Transformers have been through 4 million years of war. Like you see all the dents and all the scratches on them.
A lot of detail.
I like Livio a lot too. Yeah,
painted. I dig it. Yeah.
So yeah. So like when James and I actually, we came up with an outline together. Kind of batted that back and forth. I don't, I think that at a certain point it got so big and unwieldy. I don't know if there's any way to give notes on it. I don't remember notes. Yeah. I'm sure I got them from somebody, but I can't remember anything. And then we you could really tell in the beginning. James is writing the Lost Light parts, and I'm writing the stuff on Cybertron. Mm-hmm. But the stuff I really liked in that, the last 4 issues or so, I thought it really coalesced, and it was really funny because, I would outline a scene, and then James would write it, or vice versa, or he'd outline a scene and then I'd wind up writing it, and then the other one would go back in and rewrite it or edit it, and it was really great. I mean, I had a really good time doing that because it was really collaborative at that point, and it was really. I think that stuff was really fun. There's bits that one of us came up with, but the other one have an idea on how to write it. It's okay, go for it. I don't know. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun to write those the last bits.
So you've kind of
anything.
So you've come through the Dark Cybertron, and now we're kind of knee deep in Combiner Wars.
Oh, now we're out of it, but yeah. We're through Combiner Wars.
Oh, it's over. That's sad. Well, no, I mean, because from a fan point of view, it's So far in the Combiner Wars, we've seen Superion, we've seen Menasor, we've seen the Devastator, but there's so much new content coming out of Hasbro that the Skylings Combiner. How cool would that be? The Optimus Prime Combiner. I mean, things that I would like to see.
Combiner is in there.
Yeah, I would really like to see more, stories about these guys because we've never had a Skylings Combiner before.
Yeah.
I'd like to know the backstory.
I'm not saying we won't have more Combiners, but yeah, the actual for us, the actual story was 6 issues, or the core book that we were calling Combiner Wars, and is out in the paperback is called Combiner Wars and all that. There definitely the ramifications of it are going to be in there. There's going to be some more Combiners in the next issue of Transformers, and Victorion is a character that's going to be playing a role, a significant role going forward. Some of the Combiners are going to work, and some of them kind of don't make a lot of sense where we are right now in the stories. So, we're picking and choosing what works. I mean, I don't know.
The coolest thing is that if you guys are really done with individual character spotlight books, like you were talking earlier, if you guys are completely done with that, make Combiner spotlights. If you had Combiner spotlights, you could do 5 different stories in one book.
To package in with the Combiner gift set.
That would be awesome. All right, really quickly, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I have to ask this because, as we all know, the book formerly known as Rid, and More Than Meets the Eye. They are two very serious Transformers ongoings. You recently finished up Angry Birds Transformers. And I saw it as a way for you to step away from the seriousness of the regular ongoing and actually write Transformers comedy. What was the process of getting the 4-issue miniseries off the ground and going?
So that one was David Hedgecock, who's IDW's managing editor. He edits the Angry Birds comics. Although, also the Angry Birds comics are sort of there was an ex-colleague of mine, Nate Cosby, who put together the first set of them for Rovio. So I don't want to cut him out of the story. Anyway, it came to be we were going to do this Angry Birds Transformers comic, and I don't know, one lunch, David was sort of joking like, "Hey, you're going to write it, man." I'm like, yeah. And he's like, "No, I'm serious." I'm like, "Oh, really?" Okay. Because it's a weird one to get thrown at you. I mean, I played Angry Birds, but and I like Transformers, so I guess it fits. But I don't know. It took a little bit to wrap my head around it. But I had a great time writing that comic. I really, really did enjoy it. And in the Punishment book that Livio and I did, which is probably the darkest and most serious the comic ever gets, where it's all about war crimes. And
I still have yet to read that. I still have yet to read that one. I have it. I just haven't picked it up yet.
Okay. Yeah. It gets kind of dark, and I'm in a sort of dark place writing it. And then the next thing was getting asked, do I want to write Angry Birds Transformers? And I'm like, oh man, that would be nice. It would be nice to kind of step out and do something that's just fun and goofy. And that I can show my kid, that here's the Transformers comic that isn't about the moral ambiguity of war.
I got a copy for my boys.
An egg. Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
Well,
I like that.
My older son was really into Angry Birds, and he had Angry Birds and Star Wars Angry Birds and Angry Birds T-shirts and blah blah blah, and he got a copy.
That's cool. Yeah, and I like I said, I kind of came up with what the outline for the story would be, and just I had a fun time, listening to it. I always listen to music when I write, but I don't usually it's just kind of whatever new albums I've got. But this time I was going out and I was putting on a bunch of Weird Al albums, and I think They Might Be Giants was as serious as I could get.
Wait a minute, hold on, wait a second. Be honest, John. You had be honest here. You had Dare to Be Stupid on repeat when you were writing Angry Birds Transformers.
Well, definitely I definitely went out and bought that album. So I had it on vinyl when I was a kid.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. Dating yourself.
Now, if your kids listen to vinyl now, the kids are going to think I'm 20 when I say that.
That's right. Well, with a huge handlebar mustache. Right, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Galaxy can bring it back, so. All right, let's get to some truly outrageous questions, and then we'll let you go after that. So,
all right.
You are editing the Gem and the Holograms ongoing, and I've read places and I've seen you say this, that you had been wanting to get a Gem comic at IDW since you started the job.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What took so long?
Yeah, it's fun. In retrospect, it's really funny. I mean, I don't think people appreciated how much Gem fandom there was, how many people would be excited about Gem. And then, I mean, part of it was, getting Kelly and Sophie, getting Kelly Thompson and Sophie Campbell on that book. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's an amazing book. It's a really good comic. And, you can't plan on that 3 years ago, so like part of it, I mean, I don't want to take anything away from how important it is that Kelly and Sophie and Victoria Roboto on colors have made this book what it is. Like they've really come in and they had gem stories to tell and have gem stories to tell, and they're really passionate about the comic. So without them, I don't know if we could have just come up with a failed gem comic. But I kind of think, but it was hard. Like, even a few years ago, it was a little bit different, and I think there was an audience for it, but I don't think everybody knew that at that time. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but like
it does.
And the other thing is just sort of the difficulty of, I guess the movie and all that stuff must have been in development at Hasbro, for a while. So there'd be sort of logistical problems where if they're developing one thing, maybe they're not sure if they can go out and do another thing. So, I brought it up every once in a while. We never really. I mean, it's not Hasbro's fault or anything. I don't mean to say something like that. Like we really just never got serious about it. Between IDW and Hasbro, it was something we'd talk about and it'd be like, oh, if you get a good gem pitch, maybe we'll do something. So I talked to a couple people and things wouldn't work out for whatever reason, schedules or whatever. And then finally it was like, oh no, let's really do it. And, I don't know. There's no good excuse. It's a good question. I don't know. I don't know why it took that long.
I think it came like a perfect storm in that, a year or so ago, maybe two, there was I don't want to call it a big stink, but it was a big stink, online as far as people saying there are no female artists in comics. There's no female writers in comics.
That's bull.
Well, at the time, it wasn't bull, and there was statistics to back that up, particularly at the big two, and then IDW comes up, and you've got your Margaret Scott, you've got your Sarah Stone, and the stuff they produce is amazing, and I think that kind of got the ball rolling, and now you've got Gem and the Holograms, you have more writers, you have more artists, and definitely ahead of the curve as far as having female talent compared to like the big two. Although there are no slouches either anymore. They definitely heard the criticisms.
Yeah. Sure, yeah. I mean, honestly, IDW has really stepped up the game on the female talent. I mean, you got Margaret writing, you've got Corin Howell on art, you've got Sarah. I'm going to butcher her last name too. Not Stone, the other one.
Oh, I was going to say, how hard is it to say Stone? I'm confused.
No, not Sarah Stone.
I can't say enough good things about Sarah Stone. She's just a fantastic artist.
Oh, she's amazing,
you've got Priscilla Tramontano, who has essentially stepped up from being solely a cover artist, and she's doing all the art on the Rid cartoon comic. As well as the covers. Usually the main cover.
She was a colorist originally. She was going back to the very first stuff Andrew and I did together. She was coloring that stuff. So sorry, I cut you off.
With the Gem comic, since I've been reviewing it here in the pull bag with my lady friends Amy and Nicole, we've noticed a few things. Nothing bad or anything. That how much the first arc is sort of mirroring what is going on with the original first 5 episodes of the cartoon series. There are a lot of differences in the comic, obviously, but there are certain nods. Like, I really cracked up when Kelly wrote when they were first finding out about Synergy, when she wrote the combination code, and I'm like, she did not just make an 8675309 joke. And she did. With the Gem comic, I think it's probably the only time I've seen any, I don't usually read letters pages. I just don't. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. And I forget, and you'll tell me which issue this was, because you'll know what I'm talking about here in a minute. You probably already do.
Yeah.
I think it was either issue 3 or issue 4 that either Amy or Nicole had told me, oh, did you see the letters issue? Did you see the letters in this issue? Somebody wrote in a bad letter. And I'm like, wait, what? And this is the one where somebody is just completely throwing the comic under the bus. And I think they said something about, it's okay to print this, but if you don't, I'll understand or something. And it's like, how dare they dare John Barber to print a bad letter?
Well, no, it was a little more pointed than I'll understand if you don't want to print it. It was, I know.
Well, yeah, I'm paraphrasing. I don't have the comic in front of me.
I can only imagine. Which
issue was it, John?
Rather pointed.
Yeah, and like I said, like that second work a second time, daring me to print it. No, it was funny because it was like the letter said something like, "I'm sure I'm not the only letter like this," and it literally was the only letter like that. It was too rich to not do that. But yeah, no, it's funny. It's okay to not like the Gem comic, I guess. I think you're wrong, but it's okay. But like, but I think that went a little further than not liking the Gem comic. I felt, but yeah, no, it's the fandom. We get more letters about Gem than we do anything else now. And it's funny. I mean, we like More Than Meets the Eye got a lot of letters for a while, and then I think it even when there's like sort of a call for letters, like there really aren't as many as there used to be. I mean, feel free to send letters, guys. Letters at IDWPublishing.com. But I kind of think once a comic goes on for a while, maybe you just kind of run out of this comic is so great it changed my life. Kind of letters. You know what I mean? Like I think there were a lot of people that really, like in More Than Meets the Eye, there were a lot of people that never saw a Transformers comic being like that. So the letters wouldn't be, they wouldn't be necessarily. Sorry, go ahead.
Didn't James just recently tweet out, "Hey, how about we bring the letters page back?" Hasn't it like essentially disappeared until whatever current issue you guys are on? He said something about.
We got through. Yeah, no, he did. We got 3 letters. One of them said, "Please print my letter." One of them, and that was it. Something like one of them very, very mockingly went through and made fun of every story that IDW's ever published. Wouldn't it be great if you guys did this? And then like described the worst version of every story we published. And I can't remember. The other one was somebody that liked the old stuff better. So we didn't even have to fill out a whole letters page yet. So keep those cards and letters coming in, folks. Make James happy.
Make James happy so he can torture your soul, folks. We actually got a couple of letters in after that. I'm just kidding. We probably will see those letters columns come back. But it really, it really is. People go online and talk about it. I mean, if you want to, like go on Tumblr if you want to see More Than Meets the Eye letters. Like it's all over there. It's funny just the number of letters we do get about Gem and how much it affects some people in a positive way. I mean, so it's great. I mean, yeah, I love that book. Absolutely. All right, before we let you go, remind the listeners what you've got coming up.
All right. Well, More Than Meets the Eye, I edit that. I mean, I edit all the Transformers stuff I don't write. So let's see. The Transformers ongoing is continuing. Livio and I are doing a second book, a sort of sequel to Punishment called Redemption. That'll be out next month. What month is it right now? It'll be out in October. I think it's some of Livio's best stuff. And then I'm writing the Back to the Future comic. I'm co-writing that with Bob Gale.
That's right.
And Eric. Eric Burnham's co-writing other stories, another story in each issue with Bob. So that's pretty cool. Getting to work with Bob Gale on Back to the Future is pretty neat. I'm really lucky to get to be a part of that. That's pretty exciting.
The Back to the Future hits in October, right?
Yeah, October 21st, I believe. It's the date. It's actually going to come out the day that Marty goes into 2015 and Back to the Future too.
Very awesome. Very awesome.
And then Jem's continuing. Jem Manuel, Emma Vaselli is going to come in and do 3 issues of Jem after from issue 7 through 9. She's doing an amazing job. It's really cool. And Sophie will be back. Don't worry. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's everything.
Awesome. Where can people interact with you online if they would like to do so?
They don't want to do that. I'm at the John Barber, TheDohBarber on Twitter. I'm on Facebook, but I haven't gone onto Facebook in like a year. So if you friend requested me, I haven't ignored you. Like I don't think I've friended my dad yet. So
Facebook just isn't your thing. Yeah,
it's tough. It's rough. Like this is a first world problem, I know. But the last time I went on Facebook, it was because I got a message that a friend of mine had died, and while I'm reading that, people are direct messaging me, "Hey, can you check out my samples?" And I'm like, I can't do that.
Harsh.
Yeah. So it's kind of like it's taken. I haven't been able to go back to Facebook since then. It wasn't, it was innocent. It wasn't like anybody was malicious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Twitter's the best place, I guess.
All right.
Twitter's all right still, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I still got a Twitter account.
We'd like to thank Mr. Barber for taking the time to chat with us in this latest interview here inside the Pullbag on the GeekCast Radio Network. Make your great escape into comics, and we will see you later.
Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot.
This is going to be juicy. All hail Starscream!
Oh my gosh, this is so great.